Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the King, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have a very exciting video for you guys. We have the first ever community tier list for killers in Dead by Daylight. This is going to be, as of recently, a 4.0.0, including Pyramid Head, so we're going to be talking about this. And again, this is the community's tier list. We had over 2,600 votes. Last week, we announced that we were going to be doing this. Now, we are going to share those results with you guys, talk about all of these characters. I'm going to tell you where I would rank them if the rankings for me personally are accurate. And we'll actually understand the community's feedback with all of this. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, a couple of disclaimers before we jump on into this. Remember, everyone is going to have various opinions. This is going to be completely subjective, so take everything with a grain of salt. We're going to be talking about your killer main or your favorite killer in this video, and you might not agree with some of the things that are being said, but we're going to try our best to be unbiased and fair about each and every character. And again, this is the community tier list, so I'm just listing what the 2,600 entries said, and then I'm going to justify it and see if it makes sense to me at least, and I'm going to give my opinions as well. Remember as well, you can do amazing at any killer. You can get a 4K with any killer, you know, you can win every single game that you play in the red ranks on PC with any killer, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that killer is good. It just means that you know how to play that killer good. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, before we jump on into this video is brought to you in association with Dead by Daylight. I do need to make it clear though that none of these viewpoints or none of these votes were done by the devs. This isn't the viewpoints of the devs. This is just all on the community. The video is brought to you guys in partnership with Dead by Daylight, as I'm a fog whisperer. With that being said, everybody, let's go ahead and talk about the results. So first of all, we have the Trapper, and you guys know I'm a Trapper main. I absolutely love the Trapper. The Trapper is phenomenal in my eyes. You know, he's not the best killer. Of course, he has a lot of cons to him, but he also has a lot of pros that I enjoy. So what do these statistics say? Well, in third place, we have B+ with 377 votes, coming in at a 14%. In second place, a very close second place, we have B tier with 756 votes with 29%. And mind you, that was 29.5% have voted for that. And in first place, we have 30.6% voting for C tier at 784 votes. So the Trapper, according to the community, has been placed in the C tier. And I agree with this. You know, as a Trapper main, I can see how he can be good, but the Trapper lacks in a lot of areas that really penalizes his gameplay. So of course he has his pros. He can place traps. You know, when rank 1 survivors are used and accustomed to going to certain loops, when there's a trap in the mix of everything, it kind of hinders what they're going to do, and sometimes if they're not paying attention, they can even get trapped or they're forced to run back into you. In addition to this, he has amazing pressure when it comes to basement plays and can really snowball if played correctly. However, survivors can disarm your trap, so it negates your power completely. In addition to this, you can only carry one trap and they spawn randomly, so by the time you set all these traps up, gens are going to be popping. Of course, you can use perks, but we're looking at this tier list based on just the killer without perks and with their add-ons, of course. So base Trapper, not so well. The community has placed him in the C tier, and as a Trapper main, I can agree with this. I can justify that he belongs in the C tier. So with that being said, we can move on to the next killer on the list, the Wraith. Now the Wraith, unlike the Trapper, was more conclusive, and we had a better understanding of where he would be ranked. Coming in at third place, we had 18% with 473 votes, coming on in for the D tier. Moving on to the B tier, we had 557 votes, coming in at 22.9%, and in the lead with 30% with 777 votes, we have the C tier. So the Wraith has been placed in the C tier, and again, understandable. You know, with the Wraith, you can justify using his power, but once the survivors understand that you're the Wraith, they typically just look around. As soon as they see you uncloaking, they run away. They can easily vault, go to a pallet, and be safe. You can get that initial sneak a hit on them, and with some of the add-ons, he becomes more justified in that sense. But besides that, The Wraith is just a predominantly M1 killer, and there's not much that is going for him, and not much more to say about the Wraith. He definitely does need some love, and the C tier is where we have ranked him. Moving on to the Hillbilly. Now this one was very conclusive. Coming in third place was B+ with 377 votes, 14.7%. Moving on to S tier, we had 577 votes, coming in at 22.5%. And finally, in the A tier with a whopping 1,214 votes, 47.3%, the Hillbilly is in the A tier. And I 100% agree with this. This is exactly where I would put him as well. Billy is quite a good killer. You know, you don't see them quite often now with a little bit of the bugs with the rigs, but for the most part, Billy is absolutely amazing. You know, he has the ability, what makes, well, both abilities that make a killer really good. He has the ability to apply good, adequate map pressure, and in addition to that, his power helps him win chases. And if you understand him, and you can play to that skill cap, and you know what you're doing, you will perform well as the Hillbilly. Not to mention, he has the one-shot down ability, and once you pop someone on the hook, you can simply just use your power, go to anybody on a generator, and keep it going. You know, that is what makes a good killer, having good map pressure and winning chases with your power. And, you know, everybody has clearly seen that, and they've put Billy in the A tier, which I 100% agree with. This is where I would have put him in on my tier list as well. I do indeed have my own tier list. I made that video, and that video is sitting on my channel. Maybe one day I will bring it out to you guys, but, you know, I can just justify everything that's being said here. 100% Hillbilly in the A tier. And, yeah, you know, you can loop him and things like that, and if you're not the best with him, sometimes you can fall back. That's why you have people putting him in, like, the B+ tier. But then, like, if you're really good at him, like the people that put him in the S tier, then, you know, it's really hard to beat a good Billy. Moving on to probably the most conclusive answer on the board, the Nurse, with a whopping, we don't even need to talk about the other ones, a whopping 64.2%, 1,648 votes. The Nurse is in the S tier. Y'all could have guessed it. The Nurse is the best killer in the game. We don't really need to justify that too much. You know, she literally, what I was talking about with looping and map pressure, she has that, but amplified by 50, you know? You really can't do anything to stop a really good Nurse. You know, pallets won't help you, vaulting won't help you. Sure, you can try to mind game, but if the Nurse figures out your game strategy, she will eventually get you. She also has insane map control and map pressure with teleporting and moving at, I believe, 233% speed. I'm probably way off with that, but she is incredible, and she will always be the best killer in the game. Even prior to the nerfs, she was overpowered. You know, post nerfs, she's still really, really good if you know how to play her. And a lot of people have jumped off the bandwagon that the Nurse is the best killer because they don't really know how to adequately play her. They relied on the add-ons beforehand to make her power even stronger than it needed to be, and they were kind of carried by it, and they never truly learned how to play the Nurse. If you're an excellent Nurse player, and it takes time to do that, of course, and you memorize everything, muscle memory everything, you'll be unstoppable even with these patches. And, you know, I have a bunch of gameplays of me doing this myself. I'd like to think I'm a pretty decent Nurse. And yeah, if you know how to play Nurse, you'll see that there's really no way of combating her. Moving on down the list, we have a pretty close one here. So in third place, we have 19.3%, 495 votes for the Shape to be in the A tier. Next on the list, we have 696 votes, 27.1% to B+ tier. And finally, we had the B tier winning at 30%, 30.7% to be exact, at 787 votes for the B tier. So the Shape has been put in the B tier. And again, I agree with this. The Shape is one of those killers that lacks one of the major components that we were talking about, map pressure. That is, you know, his power does help him win chases because, you know, once he's in tier 3, you can quickly vault over things. And then normally the way I personally rank killers, if a killer doesn't have one of these components, if the other side makes up for it, then they're a good killer in that sense. And with the Shape, it does do that. You have 60 seconds to pretty much down as much people as you want. You go on a rampage, you fast fall through everyone knows, and, you know, one-shot ability, of course. And the only downside to him is that, just like every other killer, besides the exception of a few, he can be looped, he can be combated, and he has to stalk on you. So wasting that time just looking at a survivor and stalking on them and then getting your power, you know, it takes away from it. And that's why he's not on any higher tier, according to this list at least, you know. But he's still a really good killer. If you 99% stalk, you hook someone, you wait for someone to go to save, you can get a beautiful snowball effect. I know we're not talking about perks, but just to tease it a bit, if you run things like Infectious Strike, it amplifies his power and things like that. So the shape in the B tier is pretty good. I will have to give it to him. Moving on, next on the list, we have the Hag. And I do love me the Hag. And we will start off with the third place, 22.7%. This one was really close. It says B tier with 583 votes. Coming in at 585 votes at 22% is the A tier. And finally, with 25.2%, we had the B plus tier. So people were a little bit around the board with B, B plus, and A. And, you know, the winner for this one is B plus. And this is exactly where I would put the Hag as well. If you know how to play Hag, you will do amazing. Just like I mentioned with the slower killers as well. If you are 110, your power really needs to make up for it. And with the Hag, that's exactly what she does. If you can use her power properly, you will always capitalize on the slow movement speed. If you get somebody hooked, essentially, and you place a couple of traps down, that's pretty much it. You know, it forces them to crouch, wasting time, you know, precious time that you need for your generators not to be pumped. You can simply go back, and then you can go ahead and just teleport if they decide to run, or if they're just still crouching, you can get an easy hit on them. In addition to this, it does help you in chases. If they're looping around something, you can place it down, and if you're good, you can either justify this by either teleporting if they continue to loop and they trigger the trap, or you can mind game them, not teleport at all, they'll run back into you and you hit them. I've seen some really impressive Hag gameplays from a lot of people. I know some really good Hag mains. And Hag is one of those killers that is really slept on. And I know a lot of people are like, make her 115, make her stronger, you know, but Hag is really strong as is, and you just need to know how to play her. And even if you want to say that she is in the B tier, I can give it to you. If you want to say that she's in the A tier, I can even give that to you. You know, she has amazing gameplay. Now, she does have downsides, of course. You know, sometimes survivors are smart, and if you're chasing someone for a long time that knows what they're doing, you know, you'll get looped and looped and looped. But so that can be said for pretty much any killer. But with 110, it makes it a little bit more taxing on her. But once you get that first down, the snowball rolls down the hill, and you do pretty well with her. So I agree with the placement of B plus here. Next on the list is the Doctor. The Doctor had a pretty conclusive answer with 22.4%, 575 votes. He was B. In second place, he had A with 628%. Votes, sorry, and 24.5%. And finally, in B plus, 844 votes, 32.9%. Can't argue with that. B plus is a fairly accurate representation of the Doctor. Personally, for me, I would have put him in a B tier, but I can completely understand why you guys have voted for B plus. The Doctor, since his patch where he became better, has been exceptionally well. He lacked in one area, and they kind of fixed that, and that was applying good pressure, map pressure. You know, he doesn't have no movement speed or anything like that, so the static blast, giving you information on where survivors are at, helps you immensely. Now you can always figure out if someone's over here or in this direction, where to go, and keep on killing. You know, he has that power. And in addition to this, if you do go into tier 3, you have to waste your time snapping out of tier 3. And then once you do that, you're not working on gen, so it works. And he also has the ability to shock you before pallets, vaults, saves, anything, and interrupt your action, helping him in chases. And if you use this properly, you can get it down. However, just like every other killer, or mostly, he can be looped. And sometimes his power doesn't reach the survivors. Sometimes they manage to make it to the vault or the pallet before the shock even takes effect, which is fine, but it forces survivors to also throw it on pallets earlier and things like that. So it negates a lot of the loops, and he's just really, really good when it comes down to it. And now with the whole information tracking thing, you know, he always can just hook someone on the hook, use his static blast, and figure out if the survivors are near or if they're far away, and continue moving on. So B plus for the Doctor, I'm all for it. It makes a lot of sense. Moving on the list, this is one of them that I was more curious about, and I'm happy where you guys have ranked, and that is the Huntress with 12%. Coming in third place was B with 322 votes, 12.6%. 31.7% for B+, 813 votes, and a whopping 1,004 votes for A tier, coming in at 39%. And I cannot argue with this whatsoever. A lot of people have fallen asleep on the Huntress, and they've been knocking her down tiers because they forgot what a good Huntress can do. Think about Queen Kuro, think about Umbra. You go up against these players, you will get dominated, and that's because they have managed to memorize the Huntress so well and her ability, you know, the muscle memory, the practice that comes with it, and understanding the Huntress and everything about her. If you can master it, you will do exceptionally well. And a lot of people, as I said, have forgotten how good the Huntress really is. Now, if you're on console, it is a little bit more difficult, and that's one of the things about the tier list that we haven't specified if you're a console or PC player. That wasn't done on purpose. I completely forgot to do it, but in hindsight, I don't regret it because soon we'll have crossplay coming on in the game anyway, so all of this would be the same. So for the Huntress on console, as I said, it's a little bit more difficult to aim, but I have seen some really good Huntress players as well that are pretty good at aiming with a controller. And if you know how to master her on either side, you will do good. Her ability to zone survivors into places where she wants to is amazing. She also has amazing hook pressure. If you're accurate, you can literally go across the map and still guard the hook with one hatchet, tossing it. Of course, we can't forget about her overpower Eerie Head add-on and some of the other add-ons, even the yellow add-ons, you know, Mana Grass Braid are super duper strong on her. Now, the reason why a lot of people, as I've been mentioning, forgot about her is that she's a 110 killer, and oftentimes you might go against a Huntress that doesn't really know what she's doing too much, and she pulls up her hatchet a little bit more, like, earlier than necessary. You end up continuing to loop a pallet and not dropping it. She tosses it, and you kind of take advantage of her in that sense, and people just automatically rule out the Huntress. But even when tossing down pallets, if played correctly, you toss a pallet down, the Huntress hits you, then she just lifts a hatchet, forces you, zones you in an area, knocks you down, you know? She does have 110, but she makes up for it in projectile, and not much to knock off of her. She is definitely in the A tier, and I firmly believe that as well. Moving on, we have the Cannibal. Now, the Cannibal, these results, I agree with. I've been saying for a long time that the Cannibal is not the best killer in the game. A lot of people always come for me and they're like, no, he's really good. And as you can see, that's the 13.2% in fourth place that we have for the B tier. People still think that the Cannibal is viable in some sense, and we'll talk about that in a second. But coming on in third place, we have the F tier. That's right, we had an F tier on this list. 547 people have put the Cannibal in the F tier. Coming in at 21.7%, not too far from the F tier, is the C tier with 555 votes. And finally, where we're going to rank them at 29.5 with 757 votes, is the D tier. I completely agree with this. On my tier list, I didn't have an F tier. I only had the D tier, and this is where I put him as well. The thing about the Cannibal is that I don't know why he is the way he is. You know, I think when a long time ago Dead by Daylight received the licensing for this, they wanted to get it out as quick as possible. And as you know, some of the add-ons are very similar to Hillbilly, but that kit doesn't really work on him because his power is completely different from the Hillbillies. And he does have the one-shot ability, which is probably the only thing he has going for him. But by the time you rev that chainsaw up and you're ready to hit somebody, they either have made it to a pallet or made it to a vault. And if they have made it to a pallet, in some cases as well, they could fake out dropping it and then continue to run, and you would just be holding your chainsaw looking all silly. He is in the D tier. There's a lot of changes that I think can be made to the Cannibal to make him better and more viable. And of course, there are people out there that definitely can make him viable. You've probably seen gameplay of people playing him and doing extremely well, but the majority of people can't perform well with him, and that's because there's flaws in his design. And hopefully in the future we do see some buffs to him, well-deserved buffs. Hopefully we see all of his add-ons being worked to suit his power a little bit more, maybe even change the power a bit. We might save that for another video on how we can actually buff the Hillbilly. We made one of those videos for the Clown, and you guys enjoyed that one. But the Cannibal definitely is in the D tier. You know, without using his power, he's just a regular 115 killer, similar to the Wraith. We ranked him in the C tier. He does have the one-shot ability, which is, like I said, the only thing going for it, but it's so rarely used, and it only happens if a survivor is in a wide open area or you manage to get lucky with the chainsaw. But at that point, the survivor would be dead to any killer, you know? So it's not that good, so to speak. Moving on, we have the Nightmare. And the Nightmare is, you know, pretty conclusive as well. We have 17.9% or 459 for B+. We have 507 or 19.8% for S tier. And we have a whopping 1,012 votes, 39.5% for the A tier. And 100% agree with you on this one. The Nightmare has had the biggest comeback of any killer that we've seen in the game, going from the F tier. We had to specifically make the F tier for him back in the days, all the way now to the top at the A tier. There's a reason he has the highest kill rate in Dead by Daylight currently, and that's because the guy is just really good. And the thing about the Nightmare is that he doesn't have an extremely high skill cap like all of the other killers, hence the high skill, well, not skill cap, hence the high kill rate. You know, whether you're using Dream Pallets, which are amazing, or Dream Snares, which are equally as good, you will always perform well with him if you know how to play him. He has this pressure that really works well late game, especially with the pallets, at least the way I play him. You know, you put those pallets down, survivors think they're safe, they loop it around, they waste their own time, and then you just get an easy hit on them. Which you're using Dream Snares, they go to these loops and they're slowed down, and you can easily get some hits on them as well. In addition to this, he also has what I've been talking about earlier, the ability to have good map pressure by teleporting to generators, by just looking at them, you know, getting survivors off those generators. And by doing your job right, you can recharge his power quicker. The more people asleep, the faster your power recharges. So you get rewarded for good gameplay, essentially. And it's absolutely amazing. You know, I can't say anything bad about the Nightmare because his power directly stops chases, you know, it combats looping, and his secondary power allows him to teleport to generators. It's a win-win. Not much more needed to justify him. That's why you have people in the S rank, and we also have people saying B+. Adequate ratings for everything. I would personally put him in the A tier. I believe that that's exactly where he belongs. Moving on, we have Miss Piggy. And Piggy can be viable if you know what you're doing, but I still think that she needs a lot of lovin's, but not just yet. I think the Hillbilly, not the Hillbilly, sorry, the Cannibal and the Clown need some lovin' first, but she definitely can use some things. We've made a bunch of videos talking about what we can do to improve her. You know, she's not the worst killer in the game, but she's not the best or even average by any means. So, coming in at 14.5% or 371 votes, B+ for the Pig. Moving on to 29.7% with 761 votes is the B tier. And finally, in the C tier, with 818 votes, 31.9%, we have the Piggy at C. And I agree with this ranking. Sometimes, though, I may have been a little bit harsh. I would have been that 12% voting for the D tier, but, you know, I can understand why she is in the C tier. She does have some things that do work for her. She has her crouching ability, which, if survivors aren't paying attention, you can mind game them at unsafe pallet loops. In addition to that, she also can apply a little bit of pressure if she places those traps on your head and RNG is not in your favor. If you put some add-ons on it, it might help as well. But again, as I've been saying, Piggy has a lot of ways to combat her. Because her traps are based around RNG, you can literally put a trap on someone. You only start off with 4. And then as soon as they get it off on the first try, that is pretty much negated and you waste 1/4 of your entire power. In addition to this, her crouching can be combated if you simply just look when she's going to crouch and run to a different loop. Unless she has the add-ons to extend her lunge when using that, chances are she probably won't catch you and you can just run to another loop. Now, if RNG is on her side, like I said, and survivors go to unsafe loops and she mind games you, you can do really good. Think about Scorpions. He does absolutely amazing with the Piggy. And, you know, that's why I can justify a little bit more, because I know I don't play her to max potential, but there are people there that can. And I believe she would be in the C tier because of that. Now, there are a lot of changes I would make to her. Rule set number 2 should be base. You know, even combat straps and things like that should be base, in my opinion. But you guys have ranked her in the C tier. I agree with it. We can save all the Piggy ranting for another day. Now we move on to Mr. Clown. Now, Mr. Clown, he needs some loving. And I'm pretty sure you guys can see by where this chart is taking place. First of all, we have 21.8% or 559 votes for the F tier. Yeah. You know, almost a fourth of you guys think that the clown is in the F tier, which already speaks volume. Next, we have 23.4% or 600 votes at the C tier, which is you guys being a little bit more nicer to him. And finally, the end result at 26.2% or 672 votes. We have the D tier. And I'm fully on board with that. The clown definitely is the D tier. Listen, the clown was one of the first killers incorporated into Dead by Daylight to combat looping. At the time, looping was still more new to the game, you know, and Bloodlust was recently introduced in the, I believe it was a little bit after Myers got introduced into the game. So Clown was right around there, and he was the first major attempt at combating looping. You know, the whole idea of it was to throw a bottle, slow down the survivor, cut the loop down, and smack him. But he just doesn't hit that mark. In fact, Freddy is essentially the buff that he should have been. You know, Freddy does his job and does it better with the dream snares, you know? So for Clown, his power is simple. You toss a bottle, you start off with 4, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and the survivor screams, their vision goes blurry, and they become slowed. Now, for the survivor, to easily avoid this, they could A, drop the pallet, B, avoid the smoke altogether, or C, just run away. And if you do any of those, you will pretty much combat the clown. Now, there are add-ons that can make it a little bit more viable. You know, there's faster reload to always be nice. They recently made a change to him where he doesn't lose movement speed if he holds his bottles, which is quite nice, but I think there is a lot more that they need to do, and the devs have openly said that they are working towards that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the clown, you know, that's it. That's literally it. His power only helps him in chase, and even to that, it still can be combated by the survivors by simply avoiding the gas. Now, if you excessively try to avoid the gas, eventually you will run into dead zones and places where you don't want to be, but if you decide to prematurely drop the pallet or continue to loop, you know, you still can bait out the clown, and he has absolutely no map pressure whatsoever. So while you're busy chasing someone and they're distracting you, literally everybody else across the map are working on generators and doing things, and you're just stuck chasing one person until you finally manage to get them, and then you have to repeat the entire process. The smokes just doesn't do it for him, and he definitely needs a lot of love. And I don't think he needs necessarily an overhaul or anything like that, but just some more love to make him a little bit more viable. And the devs are slowly working towards that, which I'm happy about. I don't think much more justification needs to be made that the clown is not the best killer in the game. So we can move on to one of the best killers in the game, the Spirit. Now, we don't need to talk about everything because there's only 2 numbers that we can see on screen. At 28% or at 718 votes, we have the A tier. And at a whopping 1,513 votes, or 59%, we have the S tier. That is crazy. That is almost as much votes as we received for the nurse. I believe she was at 1,640 something. And I am shocked by this one. I am shocked. Listen, I 100% agree that the Spirit is super strong. You know, you can even call her OP. But I wouldn't have put her in the S tier. I would put her in the A tier. But I completely understand where you guys are coming from for this. The Spirit doesn't have much cons at all, besides being probably 110% movement speed. Besides that, everything else goes for her. You know, her power is one of the best for winning chases. You know, she can literally stand still to win a looping chase, because the survivor has no idea if she's actually teleporting or standing still. Literally, you don't need to do anything. If you choose to use your power, of course, you can listen, look for the scratch marks, and you can figure out where the survivor actually is. They have changed it so you won't body block, so you won't get that information, which is a justified change, but still, you can just listen to where the survivor is at. If they're camping the pallet, you know, you can even force survivors to drop pallets completely without even moving. In addition to this, she can move across the map when phasing really quickly to keep up the pressure. And yeah, it is extremely, extremely hard on the survivor side to combat a spirit. And you don't even need to be a really good spirit in order to give survivors a difficult time. You just need to be a mediocre spirit at best, because she is super strong. Again, I would have put her in the A tier because you still technically can loop the spirit. You still can kind of mind game her if you trail your scratch marks and use perks like Iron Will. But, you know, using an entire perk to combat a killer definitely shows that she is strong. But I agree. I can see why you guys have put her in the S tier, because literally it is super difficult to combat a good spirit, and she doesn't have any cons when compared and stacked up to the pros that she does have. And yeah, I agree with you guys on that one. Not much more that can be said there. So that's where you guys rank the spirit in the S tier. So the Legion is next on the list. And you guys know me, I am not a fan of the Legion at all. So let's take a look at these results. At 18.6% or 478 votes, we have the Legion in the D tier. This is where I would have casted my vote. At 20.9%, we have Legion in the B tier with 535 votes. And at 26.5%, taking the cake at 679 votes, we have the C tier for the Legion. Now, personally, I would have put the Legion in the D tier, as I said. You guys have chose to put the Legion in the C tier. And, where do I begin? For the Legion, you know, the thing that I don't like about the Legion is that the power sometimes can be super duper useless, because you go around, you go into Feral Frenzy, you start running, you chase somebody, you stab them. Once you stab them, two things can happen. You can either see where other survivors are at, if they're in your location, and run to them and stab them as well. You know, works pretty good in that case. But most of the time, what ends up happening is that you don't see anybody, or if you do see somebody, they're super far away, and if you decide to pursue that person, your power will run out. So essentially, you're leaving the injured person alone. And because you're leaving the injured person alone, they have time to mend, and then chances are they probably will choose not to heal, because if the Legion ever decides to use their power again for that nice movement speed boost that they get, you won't hurt them. There's no fair in it. You would literally just have to go back to being your regular 115% killer and smacking them down if you want anything to happen. And the power itself, in theory, makes sense. You know, stab 4 people and then use your power to knock them all down. All the survivors are forcing to mend, so it gives you adequate gen pressure for them mending instead of working on gens, and then they would waste their times healing. But survivors are pretty smart. They don't heal against the Legion, and it forces you not to use your power at all. And if you're not using your power whatsoever, you're just a 115% movement killer. Now, however, don't get me wrong, if all of these things do fall in place, you get a good map as well, you can manage to hit all of these survivors. Even if you hit 2 or 3, you know, you will be capitalizing on your power. And I agree with that. If that happens, you will do good as a Legion, because you're going to be injuring people with literally, you know, not doing much. You can go over pallets, you can go over windows really quickly, and you can stab people really quickly, get a free health state off of them. And then you can just go back into your normal mode, continue to chase, and end the chase really quickly if you're good as a killer. So I can see why he can be in the C tier. For me, there's just too much circumstances that happens, and that's why I put him in the D tier, because sometimes, most of the times, you aren't able to even stab more than 2 people. But that may just be me not playing the Legion correctly, and I'm sorry that I keep hitting the mic, by the way. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, and we'll put the Legion in the C tier. Moving on forward, this one has surprised me. It has really, really surprised me. At 20.6%, 528 votes, we have the Plague at B+. At 23.4% in the C tier with 599 votes, we have the Plague at C tier. Or did I say C before? I meant B+ before, sorry if I said C. And at 833 votes, coming in at 32.5%, is the B tier for Plague. I am surprised by this vote, to say the least. The Plague. Well, what can we say about the Plague? She now starts off with a fountain automatically corrupted, and that is in itself is a major buff to her. I do wish for the Plague, just my personal request, to make it that one of her ultra add-ons is base. I always say this when I talk about buffing killers, and people always ask me on my stream, you know, what kind of buff can we give to this killer? And I always tell them, If you can take a killer's ultra add-on and put it in their base kit, and that killer still seems fine and fair, that killer 100% needs a buff. And you could, in turn, make that ultra rare into their base kit. In this example, for every generator that is popped, she automatically becomes corrupt. I think that could be fair and viable. With the plague, a lot of people choose not to heal whatsoever. They get infected, they don't cleanse, and they deny her power. So the best thing that you can do as plague is try to get as most people into broken status effect as you can, and then use your corrupt. This will force them to heal because they don't want to lose their health state, and if they don't, and they choose to be stubborn and not heal, what ends up happening is that you can just one-shot them down with a projectile that literally is so forgiving. Unlike the Huntress's hatchet or Pyramid Head's ranged attack, you can literally use this for so long and just aim wherever you want. And with add-ons, you know, you can make it even stronger. You can run like apples or anything like that to make more corrupted fountains, and it works out pretty well. Now, I personally wouldn't have put her in the B tier, but I am surprised that you guys have put her here. I would have put in her in the C tier, maybe C+, but I can understand why you guys put her in the B tier. Now, I do hope that we do receive some buffs, but maybe maybe just like the Legion, I'm just playing her wrong. Maybe I have to re-evaluate her. Like I said, she does have good things, so she doesn't have any map pressure in that sense, like what we've been talking about throughout this video. You know, she's just a standard 115 killer, and when she is in her corrupt mode, or whatever you like to call it, she is a very scary lady to be running from, because there's not too much that you can do. You can crouch around some obstacles to avoid it, but besides that, you'll be stuck at a loop until her power runs out, and it lasts for quite a while. There's even add-ons to extend the time that it does last. So I can see why you guys have put her in B+. Alrighty, let's move on to Ghostface. We only have a couple more killers to go by, so let's wrap this up. Ghostface at 22.1% in the B tier is in third place, at 25.1% with 643 votes is the A tier, and exactly where I would place him with 862 votes, 33.6% B+. Beautiful. Ghostface, he's one of those guys that, again, I spoke about something, map pressure versus how well does your power help you in chases. And similar to Myers, you know, his power doesn't help him in you know, keeping the pressure alive, but what he lacks in that, he makes up for in exposing people and having that one-shot capability. In addition to this, he can also crouch to be very, very stealthy and sneak up on survivors. Depending on your playstyle and how you use his power, you can catch survivors off guard by being sneaky, or you can expose them or keep them even 99 primed. That's the reason why I put him above Myers as well, because with Myers, you know, you have to charge up your power, and then you have a limited use of your power as well. With Ghostface, you can do it as much as you like. You can 99% stock literally everybody individually, and even injured players, you know, stock them to 99. Once they heal up, go for them, you know, so nobody is ever safe from Ghostface. His power is also very finicky. This is something that I always talk about. Sometimes you're easily able to kick him out of his power. Sometimes you're not. Like, you could be staring at the guy and you don't kick him out of his power. That's why I always am like, Ghostface. So yeah, his power is finicky. Hopefully, with dedicated servers, it all gets fixed. Well, not dedicated servers, the new implementations that they're going to be putting on in. I can't say words today, apparently. But yeah, for Ghostface, he is pretty strong, and if you play him right, you will do good. A common mistake people do is just looking at survivors and, you know, not leaning the corner. If you lean the corner, you 99% stock people, you'll do pretty good at him. What he lacks in map pressure, he makes up for it in the one-shot capability, because at any time you can be exposed, and for running a killer for 60 seconds is quite a hard thing to do, especially towards the later game when there's no pallets or any place to go in a lot of dead zones. He can easily just knock you down and continue to snowball. If someone tries to save you and they're 99%, you can easily hit them, and yeah, Ghostface is a good killer to say the least, and add-ons simply just amplify his power as they should. Moving on, next we have the Demogorgon coming in at 29.9%, 561 votes is the C tier. Next on the list is B+ with 573%, 22.3%, and at 32.8% taking the cake with 842 votes is the B tier. And I agree with this. You know, the Demogorgon is one of those well-rounded killers that has a little bit of everything, which isn't too strong or too weak. He has the ability to place his portals down, his main power, you know, apply good pressure. He does have counterplay in that sense, where the survivors can literally break his portal up. And he also needs to be standing on these portals in order to teleport somewhere else. Once he teleports out, he also has the oblivious status effect to not let the survivors know that he's there, although there is noises that indicates that he's coming. And he also has the ability to use his killer instinct when standing on portals to know if someone's touching it or if they're near it. He also has his shred attack, which forces survivors to zone. You know, you can force a survivor not to go to a vault or to a pallet or to drop something prematurely, similar to the Huntress or Pyramid Head, or even the Slinger. And you know, that works really well if you know how to use it, and it also cuts down the chases. If you're in a long loop and you're accurate with his power and you're good with it, you can literally just wait until you see that opening and jump on a survivor, getting them out really quickly. He also works well with some of the add-ons that he has, and of course, I know we're not supposed to talk about perks, but things like Save the Best for Last really amplify his power beyond belief. And you can literally down survivors and end chases really quickly. And like I said, he has counterplay to him, which is great. Survivors can counter him, and if you are good with his power, you will do well. Not much justification needed there. He is definitely right in the middle, you know, balanced, fair, fun, and that's where, you know, a killer should be. Moving on next is the Oni. At 13% or 334 votes, we have B. At 25.9 or B+, with 664 votes is B+. And finally, in the A tier with 1,102 votes, or 43%, we have the A tier. No justification needed there. Oni is A tier, you know. And if we were ranking this, like comparing to other killers as well that were also in the A tier, I would personally put him above the Hillbilly. And the reason why I would personally put him above the Hillbilly is because his power is more forgiving than the Hillbilly. It doesn't require as much skill as the Hillbilly, and it also forces survivors to heal, wasting time and not working on generators. Let me explain what I mean by that. First of all, when you hit someone, you charge up your power. Yes, you only can use this for, 60 seconds, which it does suck that you only can use it for 60 seconds, but in those 60 seconds, it is a very forgiving power. You can run forever, walk into things, and it's fine. In addition to this, you can have some amazing hits with the flick. You know, this is something that Hillbilly can't really do adequately unless you're really good at it. So this one is way more easier to do. And finally, it forces survivors to heal, because as soon as you hit someone, survivors don't want to give the killer their power. We know this with like the plague, and if you're giving blood orbs off to power up the Oni, you know, you are forced to heal. And if you choose not to heal, you'll just power her up way faster, and you know, you can continue. And there are people that choose to do that, and you can power up way faster and continue going along, killing everybody. The snowball effect with the Oni is absolutely amazing. Plus, some of the add-ons are incredibly broken, like Top Knot. In addition to this, you know, when comparing him against the Hillbilly again, talking about the whole healing scenario once again, for the Hillbilly, you know, you can choose not to heal, you can just continue to loop him and things like that. But the Oni, you kind of can't do that considering you're charging up his power, and that's why I would personally rank him above the Hillbilly. Now, the Oni is coming in at 1,102 votes, and the Hillbilly has 1,214. So in this tier list, the Hillbilly will be above the Oni, but that's just how I would personally rank them. However, this can go either way. You can argue for both sides. You can be on the fence on this. So that's just my stance on it. But you can literally argue that the Hillbilly is better in a lot more aspects. So, you know, to all means, you guys can debate that one in the comments. Moving on next, we have the Slinger. Coming in at third place is C tier with 16.9% or 433 votes. And this one right here is so close. It is so close. It's crazy. At 29.5% B+, 757 votes. And coming in at B at 765 votes at 29.8% is B. So you guys have ranked him B or B+. This one is literally off by, how much votes is that? 8 votes. 8 votes separates the two of them. And either way, I would personally put him in a B tier. I wouldn't put him in B+. But Slinger, again, just like the Demogorgon, is pretty fair, pretty balanced, and fun to play as and against if you're good as him. You know, he has the ability to shoot you, reel you in, bring you closer, get a nice hit on you, and then he can reload his power, of course, and then continue to do that. He can also get some amazing shots that no other killers can do. If you're at an unsafe loop, he can get easy hits on you by just sniping you, even if you decide to drop the pallet, bringing you around and hit you. Of course, he has counterplay. You need to be very accurate with him. Normally, when it comes down to skill, I don't mention it too much, but with him, you require a lot of skill as it's a FPS. So you need to be really accurate with your hits. It's not as forgiving as the Huntress with her beach ball hatchets, or like the nurse just teleporting in the general area and hitting, and you can have a little bit of auto aim. With him, you got to be directly on, and sometimes that can be off, especially with ping. But like I said, he has counterplay to him. You know, once you are technically injured, if he does break the chain on you or anything like that, or doesn't get the reel in on time, there's not much that he can do because you're already injured. And, you know, he's a 110 killer, so you can loop him and waste some of his time, but a good Death Slinger is still difficult to beat. And that's why you guys have ranked him in B and B+, which is a fair assessment. You know, he has counterplay to him. He's fun to play as. I'm just repeating myself now, but that's pretty much the Death Slinger, and I respect it. I respect the viewpoint. And finally, the moment of truth, the one that you guys are probably most interested in, the Executioner. Where do you guys rank him? At 17% or at 436 votes, you guys have ranked him in the B tier. In second, we have 785 votes, or 30.6, the A tier. Crazy. And at 849 votes, or 33.1%, you guys have ranked him at B+. Now, I'm throwing all the rules out the window here. I'm going to talk about perks and add-ons just because he's a new guy, and I want to give him as much attention as he deserves. The Executioner is 100% in the B+ category in my books. I think he is very, very good. And just like the other killers, now that I think about it, Dead by Daylight have been doing a really good job with the Demogorgon, the Death Slinger, and then the Executioner. We're not going to talk about the Oni in this one, but they've been doing a good job at putting out killers that require you to have a good amount of skill and understanding in order to master that killer to do good and still have counterplay to them. So if you're not the best, survivors can counter you, and even if you are the best, of course, they'll still be able to counter you. And that's similar to what we see with the Executioner. I think it's a perfect example of it. First of all, the trail that he leaves behind, if you step on it, you can be punished. You won't be able to use D-Strike if the Executioner decides to hook you once, send you to the cage the second time, and kill you the last time, Final Judgment. He is a time saver type of killer. You know, he can simply send you to a cage, doesn't need to pick you up and put you on hooks. He can execute you, Final Judgment, I mean, kill you right out. And that is what's making up for his ability to not have fast map pressure and just like fly around the map like we've seen other killers. It makes up for that. Counterplay with the trails, going back to what I was initially saying, you can literally crouch and walk over them and not be tormented whatsoever. But of course, in some cases, you will be forced to do this. You also have the Rights of Judgment, I believe, where he can literally plant his sword in the ground and lift it up, and that will hit you. This is a ranged attack, and you need to have skill in order to execute this, because you need to figure out where the survivors are going to go. Is the survivor going to continue to run in a straight line? Are they going to run left? Are they going to run right? If they're looping a pallet, will they decide to double back? Will they decide to continue running? You need to figure out where that survivor is going to go. There's also a red indication that appears for a split second that the survivor can utilize in order to combat. They can run left or right and dodge it. So again, he has counterplay to him, but if you are skillful with him, you will do pretty good. He's not completely overpowered because he doesn't have a lot of pressure, and he doesn't necessarily break looping because, you know, if he doesn't have line of sight of you, he has no idea where to go. That's where some perks, I know I said I was going to break the rules, perks like I'm All Ears, Nurse's Calling, things that give him information will amplify that power. But again, B+ is 100% where I would put him. I'm just going to keep on regurgitating and saying the same thing over and over. He has counterplay to him, he has a skill cap to him, and he's not the most overpowered character in the game. And, you know, it also buffs him up that he can get rid of some of the strong perks like D-Strike, and I just think he's a really good killer. I wouldn't necessarily say he's in the A tier because if you are, you know, well coordinated with survivor friends and you work on gens, you can literally just beat them really quickly. But the same can be said for pretty much any killer in the game. What killer doesn't lose to a good survivor with friends? But again, I wouldn't put him necessarily in A tier. You know, if you miss your attacks and you're not the best with him, or if survivors decide to crouch the whole game, or if you send someone to the cage and it's right next to an exit door. These are certain things that can affect you negatively in your gameplay. But if you do your cards right and you play them good, you get good maps, and you keep the pressure rolling and you keep the snowballing with him, because he has amazing snowballing. He can definitely be good, and I would say that he is in the B+ tier. So ladies and gentlemen, there you go. The first ever community tier list. Now, as you're watching this video, we are going to be revealing these statistics live on Twitch as well. I'm not going to focus too much on it because we have this video to go off of. They're probably going to be live at the same time when I'm revealing all of these statistics to everybody that is currently watching. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear the debates in the comments. Again, if you are going to debate, please be respectful. I don't want to have, you know, people arguing and just taking it to a level where it shouldn't be. We'll delete comments like that. We'll hide those people from the channel, never to be seen again. So justify your opinions. This is the community tier list. Again, these were votes. This isn't necessarily what I think. This is what the community thinks. So these are just the majority views of everybody. Again, this video was also brought to you guys in cooperation with Dead by Daylight. And again, this does not reflect the developers' views or anything like that. No devs voted in this. No devs believe in, you know, these tiers that these killers are in. You know, this is just brought to you in cooperation with Dead by Daylight, since I am a Fog Whisperer. And thank you guys for everybody that have voted. Thank you for everyone that have promoted this and brought it around. 2,565 votes. It's absolutely incredible. A beautiful sample size to get some good information on, and hopefully we can continue doing things like this. Again, I did give my opinion on a lot of these guys and where I would personally rank them, so I don't think we necessarily need a tier list of my own, because we covered pretty much everything in this video on what every killer does, what their pros and cons are. I may have skimmed through a couple of the killers because of time, but if you guys want to know more or ask more questions about any killers, you're free to come out on Twitch and talk to me and have a chat with me. We'll be live, and I'm more than welcome and more than happy to speak to you guys. So, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up this video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, please consider subscribing down below. Leave a like if you did enjoy. And as always, I'm the King. I tip my crown to you guys, and we'll see you in the fall.